Welcome into another edition of the Old North State Sports Show, folks. We're starting a new series with 5 burning questions where, well, you could submit questions, but I'll just take questions that I have personally about whatever topic it is, and we get right into it. So without further ado, we have 5 burning questions for the Carolina Panthers heading into 2025. And a lot of this is shaping up right now. But question number 1, how will they lock in J.C. Horn to a long-term contract? Horn's 2024 Pro Bowl season, 68 tackles, 13 passes defended, solidified himself as a defensive cornerstone for the Carolina Panthers. He's on his 5th-year option, $12.4 million cap hit, so a long-term deal could save some cap space and secure a top cornerback in the middle of a rising market. The biggest thing to consider when you're figuring out this number is his availability, as you talk about him only playing in 37 NFL games since he came into the league. But I do think the Panthers get this thing done. From what we've seen with this new front office and Dan Morgan, Brant Tillis, they like to get to work. So I do think that is taken care of. Question number 2, can they find a true number 1 wide receiver for Bryce Young? We saw the late 2024 surge, the 5-touchdown performance against the Falcons. He showed promise, but when you look at the room as it is today with Adam Thielen, who's probably in his final year, Xavier Legette, who was hit or miss, a lot more misses, and Jalen Coker, undrafted free agent, you really don't have a dominant option within that wide receiver room. And unfortunately, when you look out at free agency in the market, there's not a lot available. It's just not. And then you talk about trade options. It's like there's not many folks available you can just pick up either through free agency or off the market. So it's going to be a tough decision. Panthers may have to wait another year, take what they can get via free agency, whoever that is in the scraps, and then look to draft. That's probably one of the bigger decisions that they're going to have to do. Question number 3, and this really ties into a larger series we're doing on Ejiro Evero, but how do they fix the run defense after a historic collapse? The Panthers allowed an NFL record 3,000 rushing yards in 2024, 176.5 yards per game, worst defense, rushing defense in Panthers history, most points allowed. We know about all of this. The interior was terrible. Shy Tuttle, absolutely abysmal. I don't think he's going to be back. Need someone in the middle. You're going to need a healthy Derek Brown, but who or what do you pair? Are you able to draft a Mason Graham? Is there someone else in free agency you can pick up to solidify the interior? That's probably going to be one of the biggest questions. And now you don't have to stray too far on the outside from the interior to figure out what's going to happen at edge. So question number 4, what's the plan to boost the pass rush behind Jadeveon Clowney? Clowney's 32, DJ Wonnum, not great. And you're talking about being at the bottom of the league in sacks and edge depth that just isn't there. I think free agency, again, it's going to be key, whether it's a Chase Young, whether you can entice a Josh Sweat, or you start looking at the draft. And I got to tell you, from a draft perspective, when I look at production, so 3 out of the last 4 drafts, the leader in sacks in college football has had 8.5 sacks in this very past season. So the only reason I say that is like there's a lot of names being floated out around there, Stewart primarily out of Texas A&M, of guys that sure look like they have the upside, but the Panthers don't need a project. They need a guy that understands how to get to the quarterback. That stuff translates. Same thing that you see with a wide receiver or a running back or a quarterback. The things they do well, they're not going to forget. And yes, the talent gets better and they're going to have to adjust. But getting someone that knows how to hit the quarterback, get to him, is important in my opinion. So, of course, that's going to be the biggest thing to address. And lastly, how are they going to manage the salary cap to address all these holes? There's limited. I mean, with the recent adjustments, it's closer to 28, 29 million, up or down a little bit depending on cuts, but there's a lot of question marks around Miles Sanders, Taylor Moton still. Where does all this stuff play out? And like the biggest thing is like they could go draft in some of these. Like, that would be a pretty big surprise for the Panthers to draft the right tackle if they move on from Taylor Moton and save a ton of money. All those things are in consideration. And I'm not saying they should move on from him, but it's tough for us to keep in the back of our mind. And of course, you will look to free up and leave any of those underperformers. And I've kind of already talked about a few of those. So anyways, folks, that's going to do it for today's episode. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts, y'all's thoughts on what you think, is a burning question for the Carolina Panthers. As always, this is Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.